What is the dumbest thing you got punished for in school? My senior year of high school, power went out and neither my mom's nor my alarm went off. This was 30 years ago, no cell phone alarms. Neither one of us woke up in time to get me to school on time. She brought me in late with a note saying it wasn't my fault that I was late. They gave me a detention for an unexcused tardy. I go off that it wasn't unexcused, that I had the note that said I wasn't the cause of me being late. The office person said that that note wasn't a valid excuse. I say something along the lines of, so you're telling me that if I would have lied and said that I had a doctor's appointment, I would be fine. She says yes. I tell her that's bullshit and all they are doing is telling people to lie instead of telling the truth. She says something along the lines of, someday I'll learn that telling the truth is its own reward and that lying has its own consequences. I said, but those consequences aren't a detention. I was furious. I went to the phones at school, payphones, and called my mom at work. Told her the story and an hour later I got called back down to the office. Apparently my mom had written the wrong thing on the note. I was at a doctor's appointment that morning, so I didn't have to serve a detention. I was in the 4th grade. Prior to being dropped off at school by my dad, I had discovered an old school Lego spear, you know, the little brown ones, and a rubber band. I had likewise discovered that if you stretch the rubber band around the length of the spear and then pull slightly on it, you can make a square shape with the spear propping up two of the corners. This is amazing. I thought to myself. I conveniently forgot that if you pull on the sides of the rubber band too much, that the spear goes flying. So I brought my new square making toy in to show all of my friends and they were about as impressed as you all are reading this. We're waiting in line to go to one of our classes and I'm showing a friend and lo and behold, the spear flies out of the rubber band and hits our teacher in the glasses. She just stares at me. I stare at her and she says go to the principal's office. I find out that she claimed that I was attempting to kill her. The principal just laughed while all three of us were in her office and she told me that she had to call my dad and he had to come in. The principal relayed the story and now my dad's laughing too. TLDR, my teacher thought I was attempting to kill her with a Lego spear. Mispronouncing the word Niger. There was a group of guys standing around the globe in my 5th grade class and they were all snickering and pointing at something. Being curious, I walked over to them and asked what was going on. One of them pointed to Niger and said they actually put this on the globe. I didn't understand what they meant. At that point I was 10 and I had never heard the correct pronunciation or the incorrect pronunciation. I was genuinely confused as to why it was funny. Just then, the teacher walks over, having heard the other boy say a very inappropriate word, and pulled us all out into the hall. All 5 of us got slapped with a meeting with the principal. I explained the situation, and, though the principal and teacher very vocally didn't believe me, they decided not to call my parents as a warning. All 4 of those other dudes grew up to be people I faking hate. For other reasons though, not for that. Edit. My explanation for why I hate them now got buried under a downvoted comment. Here it is. One of them grew up, and last I heard, is employed by his daddy in his DJ business, and he is not very good at it. Another dropped off the face of the planet after middle school. Another is a car salesman who does nothing but post about how many girls he's been with and all his pictures are of him at bars and clubs with his stupid faking slicked back hair. And the other one grew up to be trailer trash. He got a girl pregnant at 17 and his family was conveniently moving away when he found out. He moved states and the girl didn't bother trying to chase after him. Fine, upstanding gentlemen, the lot of them. Except for that guy that disappeared. I guess I can't hate him for anything outside of what he did in middle school, which was basically be a huge dick to me, so fuck him. Yelling no loudly. 4th or 5th grade. The teacher asked us if we wanted to play a game no one liked. Everyone was like no, and I guess I yelled. I didn't even realize I was louder than the other kids, and I was very confused that I got in trouble. I was sent to sit in a little cubicle near another classroom. The teacher forgot me, and they all went to lunch, and some other teacher found me there, crying, alone, in the dark. And then in high school, the teacher said no talking, and the kid next to me asked me a question, and before I could even tell him to shut up, I got detention. He didn't though. I had to copy an essay about how I would bring my letter grade up by paying attention in class. I had straight A's another time. In maybe 7th grade, my friend kept throwing my Hobbit book across the lunchroom. And then when I went to get it, she would bump me off the end of the bench onto the floor when I tried to sit back down. So she goes to throw it again, and I grabbed her wrist to stop her, and she started crying, and we both got detention, which I thought was really unfair considering she was bullying me and had literally knocked me to the ground. It was 2nd grade. My friends and I were playing at recess and multiple teachers came up to us yelling. We were sent to the office. I'm totally confused by what's going on. We reached the office and my 3 friends and I were taken into the principal's office one at a time. I was the first to go in, and being a good little boy as I was scared shitless. Because this is the faking principal's office and only horrible kids get sent here. As I walk in I see this little girl sitting there with who I assume are her parents. The dad instantly is giving me a death stare. The mother is cussing under her breath looking ready to pounce. And the little girl is crying like crazy. The principal tells me to sit down and begins to yell at me for doing what I did to this little girl. At this point I'm freaking out because I have no faking clue why I'm in trouble. According to the little girl who was in kindergarten, me and my friends beat her up and stole her backpack. First off, why would I beat up a little girl? I've never had a record at the school. Second, why the fuck would we want a kindergartner's book bag? Anyway, I was pointed out as the mastermind and was scolded like crazy. I was the one that punched her in the stomach and face while my friends kicked her and stole her backpack. So here I am, a 2nd grader attempting to clear my name and just thinking what the fuck. This also happened the day before after school, the day I did not even show up because I was sick the day before. So my mother was called in and, of course, was furious. She yelled at me and told me I was going to be grounded for months, but then she heard the story and calmed down. She cleared my name, clarifying the absence, and showed the principal the doctor's note she meant to put in my backpack. So after that I got sent back to my classroom along with my friends and we were greeted by everyone with glares. Everyone hated me for a couple weeks because I beat up a 5-year-old. To this day I'm still faking baffled at what the literal fuck happened that day. I never met that girl in my life, and I got scolded for an hour and hated by the school for something I never faking did. Point TLDR, I'm a 2nd grade evil mastermind who orchestrates assault on kindergartners. Prepare your anus for several tanker trucks loaded with stupid. Point this wound up being longer than I ever intended. TLDR, I brought porn to elementary school and did not cover my tracks at all, and in junior high attempted to open up a black market for Spasibas recess porn smuggling. In elementary school, I was organized. We had the internet in my house, and I was a pervert. I think it was 3rd or 4th grade when I discovered internet porn. Maybe it's because I was a kid or it's because internet porn was in its infancy, dial-up days, but there was nothing really good for free I could find. So I looked at all the premium porn sites homepage, which was a bit of a preview filled with low-res images. This was the only computer my family had, so I couldn't just go there whenever I wanted. Naturally I printed out a large number of these pages, and being unnaturally organized for a child I hole punched them and put them into a duotang for personal use. Of course this folder found its way into my backpack and to school with me. I showed one friend who wanted to show another, and before you know it boys spanning at least 2 grades were all crowded around this duotang I had brought. The girls not getting attention set out to capture whatever it was that had us all in a huge crowd. They somehow managed to get a hold of it, showed it to the recess monitor, and it made its way to the principal. I get called to see the principal, and he's got it sitting on his desk. He says to me, "That's quite the little collection you've made here." And kid me has this grand delusion that I can lie my way out of anything. So naturally I deny it. I pick up the folder and say in my best grown-up voice, "What do we have here?" As I proceed to open it, my goodness, these women seem to have forgotten their pantaloons. This is not mine. I've never seen this before in my life. He then grabs it out of my hands, closes it and taps on my neatly printed name on the front cover. Unnaturally organized. I wouldn't want anyone to take my folder by mistake. Spasiba black market at 7th grade computer class when I discovered how easy it is to pop off keyboard keys. I should have done something clever like switching 2 keys on a few keyboards to screw with people, but subtlety was lost on 7th grade me. Me thought to myself, that kids can't do their work. If they are missing a key, I could take a key from each keyboard and sell them back to kids when they so desperately needed it. I knew that if I took all the keys, that the teacher would be wise to my scheme. Plus my backpack only had so many pockets for organizing black market keys, so I decided to pick one key and take that from all the keyboards. As I said, subtlety was lost on 7th grade me, and I decided I'd take the single biggest, most obvious key on the keyboard, the space bar. I carried these around for all of about 2 hours until my class was tracked down, and I was ratted out by someone I thought was a friend faculty Scott. I was suspended for an afternoon, and was forced to do some community service in the junior high. For calling out a racist bus driver. This new bus driver abolished the assigned seating policy on the bus, so that meant you could sit anywhere. I get on the bus early one day, over 70 kids on this one bus, it gets hard to find a seat, so I could get a seat. The rest of the seats fill up, and in come these 2 black girls. They come to me and say, "Get up, you're in our seat." I tell them no, I was here first, and there's no assigned seats, you guys can't sit down next to me. They say I don't care, get out of our seat. So I told them no again. They go up and tell the bus driver. The bus driver comes over and tells me to get out of the seat. I say no, you said there's no more assigned seating. I was here first and there's no other seats. They can sit next to me. I won't bother them. He tells me either get out of the seat or get off the bus. So I get up. But by this time, there are no seats. Nobody will scoot over and let me sit down, so I'm standing as the bus driver starts driving. Sure enough, I fall into some people, and everyone's yelling at me and talking shit, so I start cussing everyone out. The other kids, the bus driver, etc. I'm calling the bus driver a racist because he was black and kicked a white kid out of a seat, so a couple black girls could have a whole seat to themselves. So he gets mad, stops the bus, and tells me to get off. So I do, and he radios the principal to come get me. I tell the principal what happens, and he completely takes my side. He's asked me where I lived, and drove me home. I hated that bus so much. I was the only white kid who wasn't a one-ape gangster in a neighborhood of Spanish thugs. All the other white kids were wiggers, so I got bullied and made fun of relentlessly. I even got punched in the face by some 16-year-old when I was only 12, only because somebody told him I was talking shit, which I wasn't. I didn't even know the dude's name. I came home one day and told my mom that I could never go back there. That was the worst day I ever had in my life. Of course I couldn't find a seat, so I ended up on the very edge of the seat, and the kids in it kept pushing me out and making me hit the floor. Kids kept punching me in the back of the head. Someone dumped a water bottle on me. And the worst part is, I could do nothing about it, because I would get jumped by 5 to 8 spics as soon as the bus pulled away. Not racist against Latinos, that's just the only word I can find to describe these horrible kids. I'd turn around to try to stick up for myself, and at least 4 people would go off, "Sit your ass down, you ain't gonna do shit, we'll fuck you up." Anyways, I went home that day, shaking with rage. I told my mom I could never go back to that school, because I would kill everybody at the bus stop. Parents, please, I'm begging you, raise your children to be against bullying. Bullying is what caused Columbine. Bullying causes suicides every day. Every day kids are being pushed closer and closer to the edge, just because some little asshole wants to seem cool or tough in front of his friends. All it takes to stop bullying is a voice. If the kids don't stop, go to the school. If the school doesn't make it stop, get the police involved. Bullying destroys so many lives every year. Imagine a dog who was abused by its owners. It's so scared to even look at a human because it remembers what happened the last time. That's what bullying does to kids. They grow up afraid to speak, afraid to interact, afraid to even leave the house. It took me almost a decade to get myself together, to get over the fear and anxiety of social interaction. All it takes to prevent this is to teach your kids to stand up not just for themselves, but for other people. I know I ranted too much, but the first story I typed up brought back years of pain. I grew up in a Midwestern state in a little podunk town. The whole high school was about 300 kids, only 54 in my graduating class. Our school is known for wrestling. We always go to state, and 90% of the time to nationals. It's a huge deal. So it's the day of the state wrestling tournament, and all the wrestlers, basically every guy, are out of school. A lot of their siblings and other relatives are gone to watch. All the cheerleaders and dancers. There's really only like 15% of the students left. Teachers don't teach. They either play movies, give BS worksheets that don't count for a grade, or just play the tournament over the radio. I'm a quiet out girl. I care nothing for wrestling, and I happened to not get enough sleep last night, so I asked my mom if I could stay home this day and sleep. She says sure, and calls the school to tell them I'm not coming in. Now, my mom is a super Christian woman who isn't going to just make up a lie. So when she's asked why I won't be going to school, she just straight up says that it's because it's not a serious school day and I want to rest. The new principal and secretary are furious. They say that's not a good reason. My mom, getting self-righteous, is saying that she's the mom, and any reason that is good enough for her should be good enough for the school. So thanks mom. Couldn't just say that I was sick or had an appointment. I got in school suspension. It's actually my very best memory from high school. My best friends painted t-shirts and buttons that said Free SUNFL 00 on them and wore them that day, explaining why I was in trouble. People were printing off Free SUNFL 00 signs and sliding them under every class door. Kids were running through the halls chanting it. It was like a high school movie. For one day I was popular and everyone was rooting for me. Now I'm 26, in California, and wouldn't trade places with a single one of them, but that memory will always make me feel the warm fuzzies. In grade 2 someone wrote a love note on the project of this beachy girl in the class, who I wouldn't have a crush on in 100 years, but maybe a million. The teacher, appalled at this vandalism, made all of the boys in the class rewrite the note, and she would perform some handwriting analysis to find the culprit. While I was writing, I looked over at another boy's writing and admired his penmanship, particularly his Y, which had a nice loop to it. I decided I would copy his style. You see where this is going. A short time later, the teacher, female, gathered the class around and was ready to announce the culprit. She told the girl whose project was defaced who it was, and it seemed to me most of the other girls in the class as well. Not the boys too, just the girls. Mrs. Teacher asked everyone, one by one, if they would like to know, as the girls snickered. The majority of votes would determine if the culprit would be publicly revealed. The question came to me. I said I did, then changed my mind, thinking I don't want the guilty party to feel the shame of being outed in front of the class. In the end, the vote was no, and only the guilty person would be confronted privately. I was leaving class when the teacher pulled me aside and told me that I was the vandal. Why? Because of the way I did my Y, which I had copied from the other boy. WHHH. But she didn't just do it professionally. No. She made some beach-ass sarcastic comment about it and had the beachy girl whose work was defaced there too, smirking the whole time. Since the girls of the class were told as well, I had to live for the rest of elementary school with them thinking I had a crush on that girl. Okay, story time. I don't know if anyone will still see this late, but here it goes. This is more of a circumventing punishment, but it still is unbelievably stupid. I was in marching band, and we went to the big competition in my area and competed against schools we clearly had no reason to be competing against because we sucked. The reason we sucked was because we had an incompetent drum major and a band director that had the largest Napoleon complex I have ever seen. So we go and do horribly. After our performance, we switch into street clothes and go to the nearest Chili's for dinner before going back and watching the rest of the performances before heading home. At this point, my friends and I already finished our meal and wanted to walk around the shopping center. We went to the band director and said we would be in the shops around the shopping center. He said, cool, just be back for the bus. My friend asked another person what time we were rolling out. They said about 2 hours from when we asked. We walk over to the shops and end up in a Books A Million. We are having a great time and laughing and joking when my friend gets a call from the girl he had just asked, asking us where we were. We told her and she said the bus was leaving right now and we had to get there immediately. We race across the shopping center and get back to the bus where we were chastised by the band director for going too far away and not letting him know. My friend spoke up and told him we did. He didn't listen. He then said that when we got back we would have to write a report about all the bands we saw and their techniques and turn it into him for a grade point. At this point I was livid. Now, I'm normally a non-confrontational person, but I couldn't hold my tongue, so I raised my hand. He acknowledged me, and I said I'm not in your concert band class. How are you going to grade me on it, or make me do it? He just responded with oh I'll make you do it. Didn't do the paper, never got in trouble. Still thought it was the dumbest thing ever. TLDR pretentious dick band director tried to force me to do an assignment for a class I wasn't in. Decided not to do it and nothing happened. During my elementary school years, I went to something called RKK. It was a before and after school program for kids with full-time working parents that had to leave early in the morning and couldn't pick up their kids until late in the afternoon. One day during RKK, we were all out on the playground like normal. I can't remember the specific context of the situation, but I was just running around with a couple of my friends, playing tag I believe. At one point, I ran underneath a picnic table and another one of my friends ran after me. Jokingly, I pretended my hands were guns and started shooting at him to try and ward him away. Couldn't be more innocent. Well, lo and behold, one of the RKK supervisors caught me doing it and absolutely flipped sheet. Yelled at me to get out from underneath the table, suspended me from playing the rest of the time outside, which basically meant I had to sit down at the table next to her stubborn ass for 30 minutes, and called my parents in early to pick me up. The worst part of it was they filed a behavior report because of the incident, which cold resulted in me getting kicked out of RKK, which would have been a huge hindrance on my parents. I don't remember the immediate aftermath, but my dad and I still joke about it to this day, as he is the one that came to pick me up that day. He also tells me he just ragged on the supervisors for punishing me for such a trite and stupid thing, as well as writing a strongly worded email to my school district's superintendents. TLDR I made finger guns and almost got suspended from my before and after school child care program. I'm deaf, but mainstreamed my entire life thanks to cochlear implants. I went to good schools, so I didn't have too much trouble, but we are still talking about the American public education system here. Third grade, got my tray of food. Almost trip on accident on some stupid table's leg, some cornflies. You better believe I got lunch detention for the next 3 days. Fourth grade, lunchrooms being rowdy, I guess. They're dismissing tables one at a time. I understand nothing because cochlear implants are utter crap at understanding microphone voices. As far as I know, lunch is over and we are leaving. I get up to throw away my food, but then suddenly a swarm of lunchroom monitors surround me and yell at me for disobeying. I'm sitting on stairs to the stage in the cafeteria waiting to be escorted to detention instead of recess, but I decide to cry. Big tears. The principal comes over and recognizes me as the token deaf kid in the school, sends me back to class. I seriously hated all of the lunch monitors senior year in high school. Chilling in math class, there's no teacher. Sub walks in, does the sub talk, notices some newfangled tech on my ear, and somehow deduces that it's one of those Bluetooth things. Yells at me and gives me an ultimatum, take it off or go to the principal. Funny thing was that a couple of years ago we had adopted a BIT policy, bring your own device, that said that cell phones, handheld game systems, and laptops, and whatever else, were perfectly okay, as long as they didn't interfere with classroom happenings. In other words, had I been wearing a Bluetooth headset, it would have been fine according to the school. Anyway, with that ultimatum given to me, I just had to look around the classroom. Who knew my deal? Half of the people were dying in their seats, but the sub assumed they were laughing at me getting caught, I guess. I went to the principal. He personally came back with me and talked to the sub in the hallway. She minded her own business after that. I have a common name, but I go by a nickname. In elementary school latchkey, after school program, they did that thing where everyone has to be quiet and one kid writes down anyone who talks, and that kid doesn't get to go outside, but instead has to stay and write some stupid sheet over and over for like 2 hours. Well, there was another girl with my name who went by our real name, and she was a loudmouth. Like everyone knew it. Of course she talks the whole time, gets written down, but then when outside time comes the teacher tells me that I have to stay inside. I protest, of course, and remind them that no one calls me by my real name. Each teacher refuses to acknowledge that she made a mistake and I have to stay inside. To add insult to injury, that girl who actually talked the whole time starts laughing and mocking me in front of the teacher, and I still am the one who gets punished. What the actual fuck? Also in high school I got chided because when I put my backpack on it caught my shirt and I accidentally showed like 2 inches of my side. The teacher told me that I needed to be more aware of how I moved or some shit because I would cause a distraction. Dude, if seeing a sliver of some 15-year-old girl's torso is a distraction, then maybe you're the one with the problem. Also once I almost got arrested for joking around with my friend that my Pokemon keychain was going to kill her because she kept saying it freaked her out. She literally told the school police officer that I threatened to murder her, and they initiated an investigation and interviewed like every person I had classes with and kept me locked in an empty room the whole day. Then they had cops show up and told me they were going to arrest me, then locked me back in the room a while, then sent me home when school got out and called my mom at work. She was furious. She stormed up there and I went from possible arrest to 10 days out of school suspension to 2 days in school suspension. But the damage was already done. The whole school and all my teachers knew about the incident and I got treated really poorly the rest of the year. I was an honor roll student, and I got treated like one of the druggy fuck-ups the rest of the year. That dumb girl even gave me a Christmas card with something like no hard feelings. I hope we can still be friends. Written in it. Unfaking believable. Somebody in one of the programming classes hacked through the firewall and had it set up so that it was not from their login, but some random one. Welp, apparently, that random was me. Side note, our shop teacher ended up becoming assistant principal this year. I dropped his class, and it apparently pissed him off. He approached me and told me I was being suspended for hacking out of the blue. I got pretty pissed, knowing I hadn't done anything, and asked him where he got this info. The library staff were also the school's IT people, so we went to the library and I demanded to know everything about these supposed hacks I'd done. The IT lady took about 20 minutes before she said they were coming from the programming room, a room I'd never been in and had no classes in. I was off the hook, but won't ever forgive that guy because he made a huge scene about taking me out of lunch and down to the office, etc. For real, though, there are so many worse things kids could be doing than going on MySpace at school. That's what these hackers were doing, MySpace. Just faking. Let them edit. I didn't end up getting suspended. This all happened within an hour or so. Almost got expelled in junior high for selling candy at school. Well, a fuck ton of candy, like I was the candy faking kingpin. It started in 7th grade. Me and my friends would go to this local candy manufacturer on the way home from school. They made things like foaming gum, sandy candy, some slimy sour stuff etc. We would go into their office and buy candy in bulk at wholesale pricing and split it. I took some to school at some point and gave some out, and the kids went apeshit. Then it hit me, I could buy it and wrestle here at school for double. I took a $20 loan out from my late grandfather, RIP, and doubled up in 2 days, paid him back, and did it over and over again. By the time I got caught I had kids buying tubs of this shit. Needless to say they were hooked. I eventually was caught in my usual spot where all the kids knew to find me. In the back of this hallway that led to one of the gym entrances. No one was ever back there on lunches and breaks. At this point business was booming. In my black Gen Sport I had the big pocket filled to the brim with candy, and in the front pocket, just cash. I was up to over $1,200 at this point. I've got a line of kids all the way down the hall, and that was my downfall. That fateful day I saw my science teacher from the year before, Mrs. Tanaki, come around the corner. She rushes down the hall past the line of excited prepubescents yelling already, "What are you doing down here?" and rips my JanSport open, and out falls more candy than would fit in Mary Poppins' bottomless faking bag. Now, Mrs. Tanaki being the one to find me was a twist of fate. See, the previous year she made me retake her final because I got 110% on the test. That's right, every question right, even the bonus questions, and she made me retake the test because she thought I cheated. In her defense, I was a C student at best, but only because I never did my homework. She had me retake the test and I aced it as well, minus one question, so she owed me. She grabbed my bag. Kids were trying to dive at the fallen candy as she yelled at them to go back outside. It was as if they knew more than I the fate of my small business. Mrs. Tanaki had me pick all the candy and put it back in the bag as she held it with a confused and angry face. Again, this stuff didn't look like normal candy and had minimal labeling. I'm pretty sure she thought they were drugs. Mrs. Tanaki walked me to her classroom and asked me what I was doing. I explained the situation and I could tell she was impressed and amused by me, the candy kingpin, but kept a serious face on. She told me that this was an expellable offense, but cut me a deal. If I joined the Science Olympiad League, basically a competition against other schools on who can give some popsicle sticks, a straw and a rubber band into a goddamn bridge that holds the most weight, for example, and she would let me keep the cash and not report the incident. I accepted the deal. Our team went on to win second place in our region and I used the money to buy a pair of Burberry Air Force Ones and a CD burner to start my next business. A lot of you are probably wondering about the candy. Mrs. Tanaki did confiscate the candy, but wound up using it as giveaways in her classes, so I was cool with it. When I was in kindergarten eating lunch, I passed some gas and thought it was funny, so I told a friend I fetched it. A few minutes later I got called into the principal's office for saying the F word, fuck word. I didn't really know why I was in trouble, just that I was there and crying because I felt ashamed for being there. They called my mom and I told her what happened. Then everyone realized I never actually said the fuck word and let me go. Another time in 4th grade I was working on a project with a friend. We were laughing a lot about who knows what. Then guess what? I had some gas. I let a couple rip, and we were hysterically laughing. The teacher warns us to be quiet, and we were silent for a moment. But my digestive system wasn't gonna call it quits just yet. I let another one rip, ensued with laughter, and next thing you know we are getting pink slips and my friend is bawling his eyes out, really scared about what his mom's reaction might be. I thought it made things even funnier, and so then I receive a yellow slip, which meant detention, I think. Totally worth the grade memory point. TLDR, I got in trouble for flatulence. Twice. Now I feel like everyone is going to think I have gas problems. But I really don't. I'd rather say it's coincidental. Late, but nice to get off my chest. 8th grade was a miserable experience for a multitude of reasons. The largest being that, even though it was a smallish school, each grade was divided into 2 teams, and within my team we stayed with the same class of kids all day except for lunch. I had the misfortune of having 0 friends in my class, but a handful of guys who liked to make my day less than pleasant. We didn't get a regular recess, but we would get incentive times every few weeks. I especially loved this because it was a rare opportunity to have fun with my friends besides lunch or outside school. It was also a time when teachers would let students get caught up on missing work. I was always a good student and did my work, but one incentive day I was kept in class by my language arts teacher for a missing assignment. I had, for a fact, turned it in when it was originally due, and I told her this, but she'd misplaced it, so she made me stay in to work on it. As I'm nearing being finished with it, she finds the missing paper and dismisses me to the gym where everyone was. I literally walked in the door as they blew the whistle to send everyone back to class. Edit. Ugh. And this was the same teacher who I asked in private if she could move me to the front of the room because I was being picked on by the guys in the back where I'd been assigned. She says sure, and the next day announces to the class that I'd asked to be moved, which of course just made things worse. She wasn't doing this stuff to be mean. I think she was just that elated, but to this day it still infuriates me.